Welcome to another edition of Discover Tinley, where we highlight the people and organizations in town that make Tinley Park a great place in which to live. And as we all know, Tinley Park is a pretty great place in which to live. Thanks for watching. My name is Ron Centanni. I'll be your host for the program today. And always, the program is brought to you through the volunteer services of the Community Resources Commission, along with our other volunteers, our high school, college, adult, all kinds of volunteers helping to put this program every month for your benefit. So we're always glad to do that for the Community Resources Commission. Just a little note, in about another month, in April 6th, Discover Tinley's coming up. Big event every year at the Convention Center, highlighting the businesses and organizations in town for you to see what they're all about. So put that on your calendar, April 6th, and at the Convention Center for Discover Tinley coming up. Talking about things going on in town here, I thought our program today would go deal with a person in town here who has a lot to do with what's happening in town. And he is in charge of the village and doing all the things. The Village Manager, Dave Niemeyer. Dave, thanks for welcome to Discover Tinley.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Ron. Glad to be here.
You do know what's going on in town here, right?
There's a lot going on, as always. A lot of exciting things.
I know it.
Yeah.
And just for the people, Village Manager, what is a Village Manager? What's your responsibilities for in town?
Sure, Ron. So my job is really to see the day-to-day operations of the village. I report directly to the elected officials, the mayor and the 6 trustees. So really, in a nutshell, my job is to make sure the policies that they develop are implemented. And it's also my job to kind of help them with recommendations and other policy ideas. So that's a major part of my job. I also deal a lot with other governments, working on issues and agreements with other governments, responding to resident inquiries, dealing with press inquiries, and dealing with a lot of external issues. So very good job, and fortunately I've got a good community like Tinley Park where there's a lot going on and a really good staff, board and residents, and just a lot of exciting things to talk about today.
I know it. And I understand we've got a pretty good staff. I think that's
do.
what to be a big credit to why Tinley Park keeps operating so well. I think we're just so fortunate to have some good people working for us.
Well, you're only as good as your staff, and you really have to have some good people to implement these things. And we've gone through a period of time where a few years ago we had some changes, and now we've got some staff in place for a while, and I think they're all excited to go, and we've got a lot to accomplish.
Well, talking about things to accomplish, some
Sure.
big things going on in town, I understand. I just saw in the paper today,
Right.
the mental health center property, what's going on with that and what's going to be developed over there, do you think?
Yeah, that may be the biggest issue that's on our plate in the next year or so, and maybe even for years to come. So I think everybody's familiar, the mental health center was closed a number of years ago by the state. And we've been really chatting with them over the last several years about potentially redeveloping the site. We went through an extensive public hearing process a few years ago, got a lot of good input from residents. And we were actually, it was about 14 months ago, we decided, okay, we've got a lot of public input. We had indications from the state that they were ready to offer the property to us, so we went out for an RFQ, our request for qualifications. That's essentially a way of soliciting developers, and what we did is we did a nationwide search where we put information in trade magazines throughout the country looking for developers. And this is a big piece of property, so we really were looking for developers kind of wide and far. We did get interest from initially 4 developers. One dropped out. We interviewed 3 of them. And what we did is we decided to advance them to the next stage. Essentially, in the first phase, we were trying to figure out, are these developers qualified? Do they have the ability, both project management-wise as financial-wise, to be able to do this? And we had 3 really good developers. We were very fortunate. Folks that had experience locally, one had experience developing out in Schaumburg, the other one's been out in the East Coast. We interviewed all 3 of them, and then they gave us very specific proposals over the summer that we gave them an opportunity to review. And so at the end of that, we found out of the 2 of the 3 actually met what we were looking for, which was to give us a very specific proposal with land uses and the like. And after some deliberation, we hired an outside group, SB Friedman, which is kind of an expert in the area in financial and economic development, and they reviewed it, and they recommended a group called Melody Square. And those of you who watched our board meeting knows that we last week approved essentially negotiating with them. We didn't. It's not an agreement that we approved with them, but essentially it's a 6-month time frame where we see if we can become partners with it. Kind of what I call we're dating them, and we're going to see if we really want to marry them and have a serious relationship, is the analogy I've used. Yeah. So there's going to be a lot of work over the next 6 months from looking at what incentives are going to seek, the environmental issues, what the final land use is going to be. We're also going to partner. We're meeting with the school districts and park district to kind of get their input. Ultimately, at the end of the day, again, we had some good developers. Melody Square, what they brought to the table is they had really the most advanced plan out of all the 3 developments. They had a number of folks who's actually worked with the village before. Dave Dorgan, one of the former manager.
Village Manager.
Yeah, and there's been developers that have worked in the area, so they know what Tinley Park is about. They also actually, what we were impressed by is that they really took a lot of the input that came up in the public meetings. For example, there were suggestions about let's have a lot of open space and things like soccer fields. They
want a big recreational
area. And that was important to the residents, so they included that. There was resident suggestions about even including a solar field in there, so that's part of it. And I think the biggest thing, though, we heard at these meetings was the concern about initially the amount of housing that was in it.
So I was wondering, is housing the big input there?
And again, this is one of the challenges. This is a great piece of property. It's got great location, right near the interstate, Harlem and 183rd, transportation with the metro being right there. The biggest challenge, though, 2 challenges is really one, it's in Cook County, which is, unfortunately, as I think
it's not a plus nowadays.
It's hard. It's not really great for businesses because the business taxes are higher, and 2, I think, as everybody knows, where there's a lot of environmental cleanup. So, the challenge for us is the market basically said, look, to really make this work, you do have to have some housing, just because of the fact that it's on the Cook-Will border. But what we heard from the residents is there's something we can do to kind of alleviate that. And what Melody Square came up with, and again, this is not a final plan, but they've actually, the majority of their housing is actually a senior development. So that will not affect the schools directly. I know we heard a lot of concern from the schools. So that's one thing. And they also had significantly less housing units, actually about half compared to the other one. So that was really the major reasons why we chose them. But again, at this point, as the old saying, the devil's in the details. We've got to spend the time to kind of work out the details. I want to add also that there's going to be lots of opportunities for public input on this. One of the things that we're going to certainly require is that they have public meetings on once the proposal is worked out. Then at some point, the Planning Commission will have their say in it. The Economic Development Commission will view the incentives. So this is not going to be something where there's going to be one more meeting and that's it. This is probably the biggest project that Tinley Park has ever had. So we want to do it right.
Any projection of when it might look like groundbreaking or when this thing might come to fruition? Any projection on that?
Yeah, I mean, it would be speculative. I'd anticipate, this year will probably just be developing the agreement, going through the public participation process. Next year, I can certainly see some cleanup. Perhaps some of the project could start, but this is really a big project. So not something that you're going to see shovels in the ground in 2019, unlike some other projects, which we'll talk about later. We do. So
now, is the state even?
Thank you for reminding me of that. Yes, I'm glad you reminded me of that. Yes, because that's kind of the other key to it. So the state, we've been waiting really for some time. They have a process they have to follow where they give us 3 appraisals. We've been waiting for that for really over a year or so now. And so one of the things we're hoping by the action that we took in choosing a developer is the state now sees, look, Tinley Park is serious. They really want to do this. And so we're hoping, there's obviously a new administration, new folks in Springfield, that this will kind of move them towards basically getting us an offer, and maybe something can happen very soon. So that's what we're hoping for. We've had every indication that the state would like to sell it to us, but we'd like them to kind of move forward as soon as possible.
Are we first on their list for offering?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, by the way we're at in the statute right now, they have a process where they have to look internally first, and they did that look to see if there was any internal agencies. The next in line is a local government. So we would, by law, be next. Obviously, there's a little detail as to what they're going to offer, and and so that's what we're waiting for.
Okay.
But, yeah.
Well, talk about development. What else is going on in Tinley? That's for, development plans for happening in the area, especially like downtown, and you got this new plaza going in.
Yeah. There's just a lot going on in downtown. Development-wise, as well as the plaza. So the two big developments. One which was approved a few months ago was the South Street development, which is 165 units of upscale rentals, as well as 30,000 square foot of commercial. So that project will be started this year. I think for those who have been around for Tinley Park for a while know this project has been talked about for really over a decade.
Right. I know.
There was a time when it was going to be built about 10 years ago. The Great Recession stopped a lot of projects going on. We created a new TIF last year to help jumpstart this. So that's the big one that we're going to see, shovels in the ground this year.
Oh, we are.
And so
this year?
yeah. So there'll be some construction. We have to, there's the up and the downs, but and then we also expect to be going to the Planning Commission probably in the next 3 to 6 months, a similar development, slightly smaller, called the North Street development, which is obviously on North Street.
Okay.
So they also have apartments, but also some retail. And they're going to be key to really the third big thing going on, which you alluded to, which was the Village Plaza, because the Village Plaza is actually going to be located in as part of the development on North Street.
Yeah, talk about where that is exactly. So I have an idea about where exactly is that plaza going to be at? Yeah,
it's going to be on North Street, just east of Oak Park Avenue. It's going to be approximately, at this point, 1.2 acres. And so this year, we expect actually to break ground, at least with the infrastructure in the next few months. And the plan is really to see an initial opening on it next spring, where we'll start to have events. One of the things, and I've been in a few of the internal meetings, is that we're looking at this. Obviously, the major focus is a music plaza, but we're really looking at one of the things we learned a few years ago when we had the Roger Brooks study that really kind of gave us some ideas to improve downtown. As they said, to really have a successful plaza, you need to have activity on it as many days of the year as possible. Right. And Chicago, we've got this thing called winter that we have to, that we have to deal with. So one of the things we're looking at now is, winter events, putting in an ice rink, whether that be permanent or temporary. And so our long-term goal really is to have up to 250 events per year. That's not going to be the first couple years or so. Right, I think we kind of see us easing into that. But really all three of those developments, I think, are going to transform the downtown. Yeah. Because, and what it will do is really, if you look at successful downtowns, the businesses that succeed where there's a good kind of heart of residential and a vibrant downtown and things for people to do. So really the reason, why are we doing this? Why are we adding residential? Why are we adding plaza? It's certainly for our residents and certainly to give them entertainment, but it's also to help the business development downtown. And you get more people living downtown, you get more people going to the plaza, that's more people that's going to go to all the, the restaurants and the bars, and it's kind of an effect that we think will be really exciting. So I really can't wait to see.
Plus, it gives the residents more things to stay in town for, and something close by that they can do for entertainment instead of going someplace else and spending their money and everything. They stay in town here and enjoy the local atmosphere.
Exactly. It keeps it here and it keeps their dollars in town. So so we're real excited about that, and that's the big things going on in downtown. But there's lots of things going on in the rest of town too. Over by the convention center, we just had a new owner of the Holiday Inn, who's also going to manage the convention center, who's had a great deal of experience. The Hart Group, they've had a great deal of
Hey,
experience.
do you know what brand is coming there at all?
Well, I can tell you what they're targeting.
Ah.
They're looking for probably a Sheraton or Marriott. It takes a couple years to negotiate it, but what that will do is that will attract more conventions, because a lot of businesses, when they're looking for conventions, they want to see like a major flag like that. So that's going to help that. We also hope that there's some other property that we just bought on the site that eventually we'd like to see develop for additional hotels.
Oh.
So that's really
Mean
exciting.
another hotel of some
Yep,
kind?
yep,
Really?
yep.
We're getting that much incoming traffic here, huh?
We are,
Wow.
and yeah, I think the goal is that this new managers will bring in more conventions, and we think will bring more people that are staying in Tinley Park.
Yeah,
So it's an
wow.
exciting opportunity. Over in the same area, Hillwood, we has a big industrial spec building.
Now, where's that at now?
That's over on the other side of I-80 in the industrial area, just kind of west of Oak Park. There's a 300,000 square foot industrial.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
that's big for us. That will create a lot of jobs, and, add dollars to the tax rolls that will help the businesses, or help the local governments as well as the businesses.
Okay.
So-
Talk about tax. How is our budget doing? How are we doing financially in the village here? Are we doing pretty well and staying in the black as we do?
We're doing very well. I've been in a number of communities, and I got to tell you, this budget is as well managed as any budget I've ever seen. We're fortunate that we've got a very strong reserve policy. I'm going to mention a few of the projects that'll help, but we really do have a very well managed budget system here, and
Did we get some kind of an award recently?
we did.
For that, or?
We did. Just actually recently, we got the what's called the Government Finance Officers Budget Award, and essentially that's an award that says that your budget document essentially is well read, well understood, easy to understand for the public. That we've adopted good policies to manage a balanced budget. And I think there's something like 1,600 communities in the country that get it. So it's not an automatic thing, and we've, this is the first time we've received it, and it's something to be very proud of.
Wow.
But this year, our budget year is based on a May 1st to April 30th year.
Okay.
And so this year, we have a lot of big priorities. I mentioned one of them, obviously the plaza. We have funding set aside for the majority of that. But some of the other things we're also looking at, folks may have heard about our desire to hire more police officers. One of the things we had a study done a year or so ago that showed, ideally for a community our size, it would be good to have about another 13 or so officers.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, yeah.
And how many do we have now?
Well, out of the 13, we've actually, in this year, we budgeted 4 of them. We budgeted 3 officers and a commander. And so the board's goal in the next year is to add to that.
Wow.
I can't say today, exactly how many. I'll know in probably about a month and a half or so.
Okay.
But our goal is to certainly add to that. And and it's I think part of it in a lot of Tinley Park, we've had a lot of staffing situations where we're operating based on staff when the community was a little bit smaller and less busier. So it's time, and the board has recognized that it's important. So that's one of the things that we'll be addressing.
Wow.
While we're talking about public safety, we're also looking at replacing the fire station.
Hey, you got a new fire station going
Yeah,
up.
over on 167th Street. And so a lot of people ask me, well, what's wrong with the current fire station?
Yeah.
And so what I tell people, especially those who have been around for a while, if you remember in the 1970s, Tinley Park was all volunteer.
Right.
You didn't really have people staying in the stations. You had a few people, and we were, 10, 15,000 back then.
Right.
And now we have employees that stay there. It's not volunteer anymore. And so you have to have adequate housing. You have to have, and it's right now it's 4,400 square feet. And we've looked at typically for a department of our size, stations should be closer to 10,000.
Oh
so,
my goodness.
Yeah, so that's
undersized.
we're quite a bit.
Wow.
So that's something that we've hired an architect for. They've done the design. It's not cheap. It's about right now our latest estimates are about $5.7 million.
Oh my goodness.
But we think it's important that our public safety personnel have adequate facilities. We want to make sure that they're treated right. This is also going to fix, if you go over to the fire station now, when the trucks leave, they have to back out in 167th, and it's not necessarily the.
And that's one of the
safest.
Smallest you've got too. An old one of the old. I think that was the second. That was the second station down. I remember I lived in Tinley Park for a while of years.
Yeah.
That was the second station around. So it's been around a while, and it's a small one. So I understand.
Yeah,
that.
it is. It is. So that's a big project too, and so we expect if that's continues to be approved in the budget, that would be construction would start this year and then open next year.
Oh my God.
So that's a few, and that's a lot between the plaza and the police officers and the fire station. It's some big priorities, but the board has taken on some things that are. It would be easy to say we can't afford it, but I think it's and unfortunately again because we have money that we set aside for the plaza. We've been financially strong. We're able to do these things, and it's been through the kind of good graces of
Just out of curiosity, what's our budget amount? How much money does Tinley Park budget every year to keep the town going?
Well, it varies from year to year. This year was bigger than normal because it's about $150 million.
Wow.
But when I talk about that, Ron, it may go up and down depending on the number of capital.
Right.
So because we had actually put money in for the plaza and the fire station this year. Not sure if we started. There's a lot of big projects that are underway. So, for example, when you knock off the plaza itself, could be over $8 million, and you knock that off, that obviously brings a lot of that down. So it can go up year to year, but we're a community of almost 60,000. There's a lot of big things going on. So.
Well, I think as long as we're running in the black and no big red flags going on the budget there, I think. Why not? We're getting the money and spend it on things to improve the town. So
yes, things that are needed. That's for sure.
It sounds like you got a lot of irons in the fire, though.
we do. But again, back to what we talked about at the beginning. I've got a good, capable staff to talk about it, and to lead it, and so I think they're excited about, and we're ready to move forward.
Wow! So. Now I read in the paper, and I saw this thing that last year, the electricity. Program in town here. You guys changed over to another company or another. Well, I'm just kind of curious, what was that all about? That affects a lot of people in town here.
We did. The electric aggregation program has actually really been one of our more successful programs. It's the background of it. It was in 2012. Residents actually approved a referendum that essentially allowed us to do this. And what it allows us to do essentially is to pool all the businesses and residents that want to be in it and for one purchase. And the reason for doing that is if you get a large group, you can get more savings just because of the size. And so that's been in place for a number of years. Residents have the ability, they get a card in the mail. If they don't want to be involved with it, they can opt out. Over the last several years, we've actually saved over $5 million for residents.
Yeah, it seemed like when I got my electric, I did the new company that the village recommended, and it seemed like my rates went down compared to ComEd. So.
They did, and so we went through a cycle where ComEd rates were kind of high. Now what's happened, and all cities are seeing this, is ComEd is kind of at the market. So this year's program was a little bit different, and it was a little bit confusing to some people, is that we did go out for bid, and we weren't able to find a program that was lower. But we were able to find a company, MC Squared, that was willing to match ComEd's rate and offer essentially green energy, which is essentially something where you can get what they call these renewable energy credits, and we get a green power designation. So residents don't save money, but if they want to basically be involved in a program where the village is getting these renewable energy credits, they can do it. And we have, I just found out today, 17,000 of our residents have agreed to do it. So there's, you can opt in or opt out at any time. In fact, there's a number, I'm going to read here, 855 564-8131. And if you're not in it, you want to get in it, you call that number. If you are in it and you want to get out, you can do the same thing. But we think, even though we're not saving monies like we did in the past, we still think it's a good program.
Well, like you said, though, if ComEd, if
Yes.
other companies are just matching ComEd, there's not a
Right.
whole lot of choices as far as saving money individually. So let's help
Right.
the village out a little bit, and that means the village gets something out of that
Yes.
too, then, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good program, and so we'll evaluate that after the first year.
Wow.
So.
Got a lot of things going on
We
here.
do, and I had touched just touched a few of them.
I imagine. Any other things looking forward to? And we've got about a minute or two left. Any other big projects looking forward to in the town here?
Well, there's a lot going on with, for example, the Tinley Center on Oak Park Avenue. Folks that may be familiar with that, we've actually engaged the South Suburban Land Bank. They're helping to buy some properties. We expect some news on redevelopment of that shortly. We've also had interest. The other question I get is about the old Kmart all the time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I will tell you, we've had a lot of interest. A couple weeks ago, Sears, and folks may have read about it, went through a bid on a number of their properties, and we know they went through that on this property. We don't know the results yet, but we're hoping for some kind of good choices. Things are unfortunately a little bit different now today. We're in what I call the Amazon era, where it's not just easy to have a big box store come in and then have them go down, but we're hoping to get some good news on that this year.
Wow. Well, keep up the good work. You guys are
Thank
doing
you.
a tremendous job. I don't know how you keep it all straight,
Yeah.
what's going on. And say thanks for the great staff we have here and all the good people working to help Tinley Park keep growing and getting back on their feet again and doing some great things in town here. Looking forward to all these new projects.
Yeah, great. I'm excited, and hopefully a year from now we'll have a lot of results to talk about. So,
Village Manager Dave Niemeyer, who's very instrumental in getting all these things, keeping him in shape here. I don't know how he does it. And a lot of things going on in town here. So keep an eye on the village board meetings and the newspapers to see what's happening and all the new things happening in town here. Thanks for watching Discover Tinley, and we'll see you next month.